Hello and welcome to another SRS podcast. I'm this week's host, Jeff Mullin. This is a special episode for Scoliosis Awareness Month. We have a special patient advocate joining us, and then also her surgeon. So, without further ado, maybe start with Dr. Caird. Can you give us your introduction, and then we'll get on to the special patient.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I'm Michelle Caird. I am a pediatric orthopedic surgeon. I practice at the University of Michigan and Mott Children's Hospital in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I have been here for my whole career. I have been practicing pediatric orthopedics, which includes spine and scoliosis surgery, for 21 years here. My training was at medical school here at University of Michigan, followed by residency here at University of Michigan, and then fellowship training at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And I came back here in 2004 and have been on staff in Ann Arbor for for all that time. And I have been a member of the Scoliosis Research Society for I don't even have the number of years, but I started right away when I started practice collecting cases toward my membership right away 21 years ago. And the first meeting that I ever presented at was the Scoliosis Research Society annual meeting in Edinburgh many years ago. So I have really enjoyed and learned a great deal from membership in the SRS. And when I have questions about patients that have difficult problems, I go to my fellow SRS members to discuss. And I met Michaela many years ago um, uh, to help care for her and be a partner in her health and care, and uh, not just for spinal care, but also for care of long bone fractures. But I guess what we'll talk about today really centers around your spine care. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Michaela, to tell more about that.
Well, very good, Dr.
Sure.
Caird. Thank you for that and all of your plugs for SRS. We all agree it's a great society. And also, more importantly, thank you for all those patients you've taken care of over the years. And now, particularly this one, Michaela, you have a very fascinating story. And so we look forward to hearing that. So please, let's hear it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, my name is Michaela. I am 26 years old. I have a disability called Osteogenesis Imperfecta Type III, and there's many different comorbidities that come along with that, but one of the main ones is scoliosis, and is something that I've had my entire life. But up until about 4 or 5 years ago, it wasn't a pivotal part of my life because living with osteogenesis imperfecta, you have to kind of live with the philosophy that if it's not broke, quite literally, don't fix it. Because there was a portion of my life during childhood is when you typically fracture the most. And so I was in and out of the hospital constantly for fractures and surgeries and different things. And when you're medically complex, you kind of have to prioritize things in order to continue living a somewhat normal life and fulfilling life that you can. And scoliosis was never something that was a big part of my life because it didn't bother me. It didn't impact my daily life, my daily living. I didn't live in pain or anything like that. But as I continued to get older, we noticed a severe progression. And I always knew of that possibility, but I also, during childhood, wasn't medically strong enough to endure the kind of surgery that I would need due to the complexity of my spine and just having osteogenesis imperfecta overall. It complicates things a lot more than just having scoliosis by itself. And so it was something that really started to become a bigger part of my life and something that I had to decide whether to do anything about because At the time we started having these discussions, I became an adult, so it was no longer my parents' decision to make for me. It was one that I had to make on my own. My curve was a little over 150 degrees, which I know to most listeners, they're probably falling out of their chair, how I was functioning and living fully. But it's truly a miracle because even though it was really severe and still is, I didn't present medically the way that a lot of my friends did with the type of curve that I have. And so I'm just really grateful for that. And I don't want to speak for Dr. Caird, but I think in a way that made going into a complicated surgery a little bit easier. We didn't have a lot of things in our back pocket to make it easier, but I think that was one of the small things that did make it easier. And so I ultimately decided to move forward with the surgery because we had discussions that it was going to impact my heart and lung function moving forward. And when you're 20 years old, that's not a discussion that you want to have about a shorter life expectancy and things like that. I have a joy for life and a will to live. And as much as I love Dr. Caird for something that could alter my life in ways that I couldn't begin to imagine, I did consult several other surgeons just because I didn't want to make a life-altering decision based on one opinion and one. I just wanted to be able to say I did all that I could, no matter the outcome. And so I did that, and all of them said no. And one said that I might not make it off the table. And so you would think that that would have made me not want to do it at all, especially because I wasn't typically a risk taker growing up. But I just felt this pull to that I had to do it. I didn't want to find out if the statistics were right about my life expectancy given my condition. And so, with the help of Dr. Caird and my entire medical team, we did it. I was in halo traction for 3 months and then had the spine surgery, and then a week later faced some complications, and we had to do it again, which was really scary and really difficult. But one of the main complications that they anticipated that I would have is coming out of the operating room with a tracheostomy, and that was something that I feared. But I also have friends that live with one and live a fulfilling life, and so it's hard to say that I'm glad that I made the decision I am, but it's also, I'm not naive to the fact that what a gift my outcome is. And I don't know if you believe in miracles or not, but I don't know how anyone could look at my circumstances and my story and not believe in miracles. And that day, December 23rd, 2020, was definitely the day of miracles. And just really grateful to be able to share my story because I haven't heard a lot of success stories of patients like mine in my circumstances. And just really grateful for what Dr. Caird and my entire team has done because she really did something that no other surgeon said would be possible, and she's very humble about it. But the gift of life is the greatest gift that you could give somebody, and it's not lost on me what I've been given.
That's a fantastic story, Michaela. Thank you for sharing. And just the stress for our listeners, you said your curve was 150 degrees.
A little over, yeah.
That's remarkable. And so
Yeah.
maybe since hopefully some other patients are listening to this podcast, Dr. Caird, can you tell us or the listeners about this conversation you had leading up to surgery, so what they can sort of the discussions were like?
Yeah, we were pretty frank, weren't we, Michaela? We
And I think
had
that helped me make the decision like
yeah.
the best because I'm not the kind of person that like to make it fluffy because I feel like if you make it fluffy, then I can't make the best decisions because I'm basing
Yeah.
a decision that's not reality.
Yeah, so we worked together, and it was, I think we talked about scoliosis surgery for quite a few years leading up to your final decision, and I think that the risks are scary, and so those were, we discussed all of those, um, and I think at a lot of points along the way, you and your parents and others who were advising us and keeping part of the decision making, everybody thought, well, I think Michaela's really gonna decide not to do surgery because
I
her
didn't know
bonus,
that. You thought that I wasn't
right?
going to?
I thought you probably
Oh
wouldn't
my
because
goodness.
we would say your bone is pretty fragile, and
Yeah.
we didn't know how well the you would hold, and how soon the fusion would take place, and we weren't sure exactly how to make it safest for you. Um, and the curve continued to get worse. And so we said, well, we're kind of at a point where we need to do it or not do it. And then honestly, I thought we kind of, you went and we talked to lots of people. You talked to people, but I talked to lots of people too. And everybody said, we kind of think it's past the point where it's something that she would choose. And you said, nope, I really want to try this. And so we enlisted the whole team. But it did mean, because the curve was big, that we decided to try to use a halo traction for a while. And you did great with that. I know that must have been a scary time, just sort of anticipating next steps, but you really did great. Um, and that really gave us a chance to help your trunk height and help your lungs a little bit, and get everything and make sure your nutrition was great so that everything was just really, really optimized for surgery.
So, Michaela, following your surgery, you're doing so well that you're sort of moved on now, or sort of an influencer in some ways. You've been written up in People magazine and have a very strong social media presence. So you're spreading awareness for your journey and scoliosis in general. So maybe tell the listeners what that's like.
Yeah, I utilize social media under the username Funsai Style to share a little bit about my life with osteogenesis imperfecta. And when I was embarking on my scoliosis journey, I knew immediately that I wanted to share it, because before I embarked on mine, I looked for other patients and resources that was somewhat similar to mine, and I really couldn't find any. And so I it was tough for me to share at times, because especially when I did have such an incredible outcome, because I understand that what I chose to do and what Dr. Caird chose to do was a massive risk. And I understand that not everyone's healthcare team is willing to take those risks for their patients. Um, and I realize that not every patient may have the outcome that I did. And so I always kept that in the back of my mind when sharing. But if I could give one patient a glimmer of hope, or the chance to not settle. It's okay to get second and third opinions on whatever decisions that you're making. Then that was enough for me. And I received many messages from patients around the world, really, that gave them hope, whether it was a more simple spine fusion than mine or a more complex one, to know that it can be possible if you have a team who is willing and capable to do it alongside you. And that really, it gave me purpose through such a challenging time, because even though I did have such a great outcome, it was the hardest thing that I've ever done. But it's often the hardest things that we endure are the things in our life that become the most worth it and the most important. And so I'm able to be here with my friends, my family, and my community to experience all that life has to offer for me. And my goal is to live the most fulfilling life that I can, and continue to share the joy for life that I can. And even though scoliosis will always be a part of my life, and is something that I worry about moving forward, but just knowing that I did all that I could do to continue moving forward in the best direction, no matter how long anyone's life is, and just taking every day as it comes.
Maybe I could add
That's a
to
truly a hard.
maybe I could add also, Michaela, what a great advocate you are. And Michaela and I went with the AAOS and the Scoliosis Research Society to Capitol Hill. It's been a few years, and we lobbied um, our Congress people and senators for orthopedic diseases and for support and research dollars to help understand treatments uh, and osteogenesis imperfecta was just one of those conditions that we tried to highlight. And I learned so much from you, Michaela, and your family on that trip. And I'm forever thankful for the time that we got to spend together trying to raise Congress's awareness of this condition and other orthopedic conditions.
Well, that's been a fantastic conversation. Thank you both for all the work you've done and contributed. Michaela, you said your goal is to sort of make a difference in one patient's life. I'm sure you've done much, much more than that. So thanks for everything, and thank you for all the listeners for joining in.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.